Fox Sports rule analyst, longtime compadre of mine on NFL Total Access. We used to go back and forth as host and VP of officiating as he was at the time for the NFL, Mike Pereira. How are you, Mike?
I am good, Rich. How are you?
I'm fine. Let's start with that perfect hit. Properly called?
Absolutely, no question. And it kind of shocks me when I hear some people in the media saying that, and former players that saying it wasn't a foul, and for Pac-Man Jones to say it was an acting job. If there's ever a foul for a hit on a defenseless receiver, which in my opinion was a deliberate shot, I mean, that's it. I mean, there would have been more hell to pay if they didn't call it than there is for making the call.
So it does appear, that it is a shoulder to the helmet hit. What is the exact rule here that gets called?
Exact
Mike?
rule is that if a receiver is in a defenseless position, and especially when you're talking about an incomplete pass here, this is a pass that was overthrown. I could even make a case that this was late, but if he's a defenseless receiver, you cannot make contact with the head or neck area with your helmet, shoulder, or forearm. And you can't lead with the crown of your helmet anywhere. You can't hit him even in the sternum with the crown of your helmet. But this was the classic shoulder to the head hit. And certainly, and I know, listen, I'm sympathetic on how difficult it is to play defense, but, the onus is 100% on the defender. The rule even says that the defender is responsible for hitting the receiver in the head or neck area, even if the receiver adjusts his position or tucks, does all that stuff to brace for the contact. 100% liability is on the defender, and that was a classic. That was a classic hit, an illegal hit on a receiver.
So then there's an issue with whether you're a runner or not. That appeared to be the case with Giovanni Bernard getting hit in the chops by the crown of Ryan Shazier's helmet. Not only was there no penalty called, they decided it was a fumble on the play after it was reviewed. Should there have been a penalty called on Ryan Shazier on that play, Mike?
I mean, that's one of the things that the league is looking at today. I still don't think it is, because when they brought in, this is the crown of the helmet rule that was brought in 2013. And I was against the rule that was when it was brought in, because it was really designed for, when two players are lined up against each other, like two rams with their heads down. It was for that type of direct contact. It wasn't for, when a player was sideways and yet, in this case, he turned around, spun around after making the catch and was clearly a runner. The issue was that this rule was going to be so hard to officiate, and that's why when they brought in the rule, there was two called in 2013. There were none called in 2014, and there have been none called in 2015. And I just don't see it as the classic lineup, two guys face up on each other and one guy lowering the head and making contact with the crown of the helmet.
But I thought that was for a running back, that a running back can't lower his helmet and hit a defender. I thought that's why that rule was in place, because to me, so basically, you could just use the crown of your helmet and hit somebody in the chops as long as you consider, and that's illegal, as long as somebody's considered a running back?
That's correct. Absolutely.
Why?
As not as lined up well. I mean, that's maybe a discussion point, because what you just quoted me really there is the college rule, is the targeting rule. If you're not defenseless, in many of the situations, you can use your helmet and make helmet-to-helmet contact. But what you can't do is line up a guy that's coming directly at you and lower your head, and that's the new crown of the helmet rule. And I know the rule doesn't specifically say that you have to be lined up directly at each other, but if you listen to all the interpretations that were put out, it was for that direct contact, and that's why they said it didn't apply inside the tackle box. That if it was inside the tackle box within 3 yards of either side of the line of scrimmage, it's not a foul, and that's the type of contact that they were talking about. It had to be open field and two guys headed directly at each other. Now, the league's not going to like the contact, because that's vicious and it's to the head, and they may look at it and say, it's a fine. I think there were 2 fines issued this year, even though they weren't called. But, to me, it wasn't the classic interpretation of the rule when it was brought in, yet I could see the competition committee looking at it and say, hey, at all costs,
Yeah.
we almost want to go to the targeting rule and eliminate any helmet-to-helmet contact.
Mike, can you hold on? I need to take a 1-minute break. We'll come back and talk about the Joey Porter being on the field, what the rule
Sure.
is, and what the officials were doing during that process, as best you can tell. We're going to take a 60-second break, and we'll be back with Mike Pereira, former head of NFL refs, now of Fox Sports, to talk about what everybody's talking about. What was Joey Porter doing out on that field, and why was there no flag on that? Welcome back to the Rich Eisen Show. Mike Pereira, Fox Rules analyst, joining me here. So what are the rules about who's allowed on the field when a player's down and injured, Mike?
Well, I think the simple rule is the head coach and trainers, but I think in practical situations, there's a lot of people that are let out on the field when it's a serious injury like that, not just your run-of-the-mill ankle strain or knee strain or something like that. I think people were so concerned at, when the type of hit and the way he went down that you could have been looking at something very seriously. I think, hey, should Joey Porter been out there in the middle of the field, yapping off? I don't know who started, and I think that remains to be seen. I'm sure that the league is going to ask for reports from all the officials. But I think if you take a wide-angle shot, and somebody sent me a picture today, and I'm assuming it sure looked like that it was of the same play. And there's 13 coaches on the field. There's a lot of Cincinnati coaches on the field, and there's Pittsburgh coaches on the field. So I know that we're getting caught up in a lot of that in the discussion, but I don't think that's really where the discussion belongs. I think ultimately it's the players that lost control, and maybe Marvin Lewis that lost control of his own team. And I can't put it on the responsibility of the officials. And I do want to make sure that we understand that the second penalty that was called was not for Pac-Man's push of Joey Porter. It was for contact with the game official, which the league has told me they've got the video that shows it, and it was substantial contact. Now, my only comment about that is if it was so substantial, then why didn't they eject him on the spot, which they didn't do?
Well,
but it remains to be seen.
I have a few things to go back and forth about what you just said, Mike. First things first is that if Adam Jones, if Joey Porter's not out there yapping, as you said, then Adam Jones isn't shoving an official. It's that simple. It is 100% that simple. And there are two shots that CBS has from high above, one of which is the one that everybody's seen where Joey Porter is being taken away by a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers after he's been bumped by Wallace Gilberry of Cincinnati. Another one is when Antonio Brown is being taken off the field and Burfict attempts to go over and say something to him, and Porter says something as an aside to Burfict. Now he is no longer an assistant coach out there attending to a player. He is in the midst of something. Shouldn't the officials take that into account when they're throwing a flag on a player for contacting them, that maybe there's a member of the coaching staff that should know better, that shouldn't be involved? Shouldn't that be taken into account?
I think it should, Rich. But I'm not gonna jump on the bandwagon until I know all the facts, and I can't say that I know all the facts at this point.
Okay.
If something, if coaches were coming out in the field and something happened first, if everything is just as it shows on television, which is not always the case, then yeah, maybe then it should have been a flag on Joey Porter. Of course, I assure you this: I doubt the officials knew that it was Joey Porter. We all know, for those of us that have been around a long time, his antics on the field, in his heyday as a player. But if that's the only situation, if he went out directly into their huddle and got into their faces and started that, yeah, I get it. Then, but I've been burned too many times, it seems, when I try to say something and then all of a sudden I get something that points out that it started somewhere else, and then I'm wrong on the thing. So the whole thing was chaos. The whole thing got to the point where it was chaos. If you look at when the penalty flag was thrown, Pac-Man Jones does a beeline to the back judge who made the call and got in his face. It's just, I get where everybody's going here, but I don't want to be sour, but let's face the facts here that you've got a guy like Burfict who had his issues in the Pac-12 before he even went into the NFL, and you've got Pac-Man. There's the responsibility relies. To me, falls with Marvin and with the players, and I get the whole focus on Joey Porter. But I think it's not pointed in the direction that it needs to be pointed in. That the game was lost on the fumble, and the game was lost by the fact that Burfict couldn't keep control of himself, and Pac-Man Jones, who people say that he's turned the corner. Well, I've talked to the officials. They say that's a crock. He is always playing on the edge. He is always on the edge, with opponents and all that kind of stuff. So. And I also get, it's too big of a penalty to call at that point of the game. Well, I would agree. If they'd have called it for that little push on Joey Porter for that push, then I would have thought, I don't think that merited the foul. But to me, if it was contact on the official, and I saw the reaction of Buddy Horton when he threw the flag, then I think you're going to call that no matter when it is in the game. I'm always one of those that say if you call it in the first quarter, call it in the fourth quarter. And, I know that it's been popular to pile up on the officials this year, but there's question as to whether Joey Porter should have been penalized or not. But there's no question that the Bengals lost control and that those players lost control, and it's not the officials to me that were responsible for that loss.
Let me just ask you a couple quick ones here. Had Joey Porter been flagged, would that have offset only the Adam Jones penalty, or would that have offset the Burfict penalty as well?
If he would have been penalized, no, because it happened so late after the fact. It would have offset the Adams Jones penalty, but it wouldn't been. It would have been considered a foul between downs. Both of those would have been a foul between downs.
Okay, it
wouldn't have affected the first penalty.
And with Perry being the official previous, do you think that why did the league put him back out there for this again, figuring maybe he knew where some of the arguments would be and he'd try and tamp those flames out, or what's the idea of taking the same official from the last time these two teams were going at and put him out there again?
I can't answer that because I wouldn't have done that. You go through a season and you don't let a team, you don't let a referee work a team more than twice. And when you look back and see that, Perry had the matchup, who I think John Perry's really a good referee, maybe top three. The fact that he had those two teams just a few weeks before, I would not have put him in that situation. I don't know what was Dean was thinking, but when you look back at previous games that they worked, you're going to put McCauley back on on Carolina this weekend because he's probably going to be in the division round. No, not with the Beckham Norman situation. And I was really surprised when I saw this with John Perry.
Last one for you. Who do you think should ref the Super Bowl? Based on what you saw this year?
The way things are going, I think I'm going to apply for the assignment.
Nice, Mike.
I think I'm going to recruit you to be my umpire.
It's a CBS game. I don't think they'll. If they got to choose one, they'll choose Carey. I think it's just TV allegiances.
I don't know. I just hope that when the dust settles at the end of the game at Super Bowl, I just hope like hell for the sake of the league and for Dean Blandino that you're talking about the game and not about them, because it's been a long enough year for them.
And last one then, Chris Law just got in my ear and reminded me, do you think that Bryant catch was a catch, the Martavis Bryant catch?
Yeah, I did, because, if I'm an official, I was talking about that earlier today, too. I think he has it pinned against the back of his leg and slides on his leg a little bit, but, the hand stays on the ball the whole time when he flips over, and, it was incredible. And I called it a wow moment, even for an official. You're not a fan, but when something like that happens, or the Beckham one-handed catch, there's a wow factor that you get as an official. It stuns you that it happens because you haven't seen it before. But, to me, it was close, but it was ruled a touchdown on the field, and without the hand coming off the ball, I don't think you could have. There was no shot of reversing it.
Mike, thanks for taking the time, man. You're the best. Appreciate it.
You got it. Anytime, Rich.
That's at Mike Pereira of Fox Sports.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.